For the fans. For the players. For the big plays. Firebirds Weekly. Tonight's guest is Dustin Alameda, owner of Royal Retros.
Welcome to the latest episode of Firebirds Weekly. My name is Adam Samra, and my co-host Chris Epperly is on assignment in a new location for the evening. And with us tonight is a special guest for us from Royal Retros Uniforms, Dustin Alameda. Dustin, how are we doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. We want to thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
All right. So, tell us a little bit about, who you are, what you do, and, how your, kind of company came to be with this, kind of throwback uniforms and jerseys. It's a big part of the market right now.
Yeah, appreciate it. Started back in 2016. I've always collected jerseys, just big sports fan, something I like to do. And pretty much when I was in college, I was reselling them on eBay, even going in the Portland area. At that time, they had all authentic Nike jerseys at Ross and Marshalls and stuff. I don't know how that was getting missed. So I was scooping those up and selling them online to people. And then people started asking for other teams, can you get the Portland Mavericks was an old time team. Can you get the Portland Beavers, stuff like that. And so we started looking at manufacturing and kind of just went in that direction of instead of reselling, kind of getting different jerseys made. So that was back in 2016, and then it's just grown ever since.
So, so talk about, your fandoms. You said before we started, you kind of talked about growing up in the Bay Area and then obviously being in Portland now. Talk about your fandoms and kind of where you started in terms of, your sports fanness, I guess. That's not a word, but, we'll count it right now.
Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area, so 49ers, Giants, Warriors, Sharks, huge fan. Football's always been a number one, so, I've maybe missed, 2 Niners games in my life that I didn't watch since, I was a baby, so that's always been my team, but just grew up there.
I didn't go Raiders.
School,
I said, I like how you didn't go Raiders.
I feel bad that they moved. I feel bad that they moved, but it was a good rivalry for sure. But I grew up on the other side of the Bay, so that was always a big rivalry. You can't like them both. Same.
No, right?
A's,
Definitely not.
A's was sad too. Went to that game last year, that final home game. That was sad to see, but
that's a whole wild thing, man. That sucks. That sucked. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I've been in Portland since high school, so I've about half my life in the Bay Area, half my life in Portland, pretty much. So just split a lot of time back and forth.
So was it a thing where for your own fandom, were you somebody who, bought all the different Niner jerseys or, San Jose, that kind of, was it something where it started because of your own collection, or is it something that you kind of thought of afterwards as, hey, this is maybe a way to get into the market?
I guess initially it was my own. I wish I wasn't in the middle of moving, or I'd show you have an entire closet of just jerseys, just nothing but jerseys. So that's kind of how I got into reselling, was just reselling my own stuff or picking up, stuff off eBay or secondhand. And then just kind of grew that throughout college. This is something to do on the side for extra money. And eventually it was I kind of want to do this as a business, and I'll give it a shot. And it worked out. So
when did you realize it could be something that, could go from hobby / side hustle to hey, I can turn this into a whole business and make it, my full-time gig, and, whatever I was doing before, I'm good, I can make money doing this? When did that kind of realization happen?
Probably, I mean, after grad school, I just wasn't finding anything, and I was doing it on the side. So that was like when I formed an actual business. But I still had another job, and then when COVID hit, I got laid off, and I was kind of just like, you're gonna have to make it your full-time thing, or you got to make it work somehow. And so I put all my time and energy into it during the pandemic, and that's when it really kind of blew up at that point.
So when did you, or where did you get guidance to kind of get the business, well, the legal, I guess, portion of the business off the ground? I'm assuming you probably, I don't know what you went to school for. I don't know if business was part of your schooling or not, but how did you kind of navigate through the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I got my degrees in business, so
okay,
that
gotcha.
I guess taught myself. I mean, kind of taught myself along the way, and really wanted to work at like a place like Nike or Adidas or something like that, and just didn't feel like there was really getting much of an opportunity, at least to do what I would want to do, and so it's like try it myself, see how it goes.
Yeah, and I mean that's nice to see too that you put your degree to use right out of the gate. You know what I mean? That's awesome.
Yeah, not how I planned it, but worked out for the best in the end. Yeah.
So so you're doing this like during COVID. Talk about trying to start a business during the pandemic and the challenges associated with that, since the West Coast, California, Oregon, some of those states were the toughest in terms of like getting people back out and kind of getting back into normal, quote unquote, normal life. What was some challenges in getting that going under the pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, being an online business only actually helped it. I feel like sales and traffic went up a lot just because people were at home, nothing to do. And luckily, these are like older teams, so it wasn't like the fact that there weren't any games going on didn't really affect it. It was more of like people reliving memories, watching old games. So I feel like that picked up. And then just as far as the business, before the pandemic, I was like shipping them myself out of a garage and, really just doing the best that I could. And then during, I couldn't, like you said, the lockdowns, everything, I couldn't take it. I actually moved to Texas for a year and set up with a warehouse in Texas where it still goes today. Everything shipped through their warehouse, and it's like professional, packing, shipping. That's what they do. So it took a lot off my plate being able to just go out there, live in Texas for a year and really set the business up in like a professional way. And like I said, just being online only really increased the traffic, and it wasn't like a lot of businesses that had to shut. I mean, if anything, it helped in a weird way to the pandemic.
Was that like when you really realized like, okay, I could have success with this, when you were like, okay, I'm going to, have it all set up where we can send these out professionally, packed and shipped and everything? When was the moment that you kind of went, okay, this is something that can be lucrative and successful?
Yeah, probably around that time. That's when I made the decision to move to Texas. It's kind of, I didn't know anyone out there, just out on my own, just like, I'm going to set this up because I knew that I needed a warehouse. I knew that, just tax-wise, business-wise, and during the pandemic, Texas was just like the best place to be during that time. So I just kind of took a gamble, and I was like, I'm going to leave everyone I know, go out to Texas and really just focus on, putting everything into the business to get it to where it is. And if it doesn't work, then you're gonna have to move back and find another job somewhere. Kind of all in at that point. That was like early 2021. Was just like, I'm all in, and it's worked out from there.
Now, how do you, going through your website, obviously there's some teams in there that don't exist any longer. So I got two questions. One, how do you get permission to have something like that? And secondly, how are those designed? Like, are you your own artist, or do you have the same people that manufacture them kind of put that stuff together?
We have like an art team, like an in-house art team, and then we have like a few designers that are like independent contractors that are better for. It's like the in-house, I'd say, is good for recreating stuff. Like, send them an old black and white picture, and they'll make it look new. And then we'll use like independent contractors to come up with like a team might reach out and like, hey, we need a completely new logo, and then we'll kind of use them to come up with that. As far as the teams go, we started with like just old defunct teams where nobody really owned the rights anymore. That's kind of how, I reached out to people at the beginning and to get licenses, and they're like, we don't know who you are, like go away type thing. So I was like, all right, well, let's see, what teams like does no one own the rights to, and research that, and really, research trademark law and a lot of deep research at the trademark office to find what was expired or never owned, and going deep into history. And so we started there, and then as we've grown, we've been able to, get licenses from either some individuals own the rights to teams, some leagues, and then obviously now we're working with like current leagues like the AF1 and the UFL and stuff like that. So once we, kind of were able to prove ourselves, and then we were able to really get licenses and expand like the offerings that we have.
Gotcha.
So in that case, it's not like copyright law and public domain, or something like that it takes 75 years to come into the public domain. So maybe some of the old, the Negro League stuff, I think that's Negro League baseball, right? NLB. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
To that? Okay. Yeah. And some of that might be far enough back for that, but it sounds like you're dealing more in like the trademarks and trying to figure out who owns what, if they own it, that kind of thing. And so, is that something you kind of spearhead, or do you have like a group that, do you have a group of people that are like, okay, we're going to check this out and see what we can use and which ones we can try?
Yeah, it started with me. I mean, obviously I have an attorney to run things by, and hopefully don't ever need to use, but
of course
it could get really muddy, especially, I mean, like the Negro Leagues never registered any trademarks, and really you're never going to find who created that logo. Like there's no records of it. So stuff like that, like the really old stuff, as hard as you would try, like, nobody owns it that you can find. Nobody's going to come after you. I mean, so that kind of stuff is easy. And then I guess, the more modern stuff, it does get really muddy because a lot of people claim to own things that they don't. We've had issues with, I'm not going to name names or anything, but with issues with like leagues or businesses or individuals, just registering random trademarks from the past that they have no connection to, and then coming after us and being like, we own this now, we're going to take it from you, and or stuff like that, where people are just trying to make money off of designs and stuff they had nothing to do with. So that gets kind of muddy, and that's where we do need attorneys. But for the most part, we reach out to a league or whoever, if it's trademarked, you can, has their contact information, reach out and say, hey, we want to, sell this team, and let's work on a deal with that.
Speaking about the Negro League, like uniforms and the throwbacks, with some of the stuff that Major League Baseball is doing now, the last couple of years, having the Major League Baseball game at Rickwood Field in Alabama, those jerseys have always been popular, but now I think they're even becoming more popular. Have you seen that in terms of the Negro League jerseys and people purchasing, Homestead Grays or, the New York Cuban Giants or something? I mean, have you seen an increase in that with some of the popularity of the resurgence of some of the popularity of the Negro League, like players and teams and things? Have you seen that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially once they started adding the stats, making them like official Major League stats. Yeah. I think a lot of people started researching, like, like who is Josh Gibson? I don't know who this guy is, and like looking into him, and then created a lot of interest. But unfortunately, with the new like Nike rules, they can't really wear ever since Nike took over from Majestic, can't really wear the Negro League uniforms much, if at all, because they're limited to like 5 uniforms per year or something. So that's kind of disappointing, because I do like to stay on the field. Like the Rickwood thing was obviously planned years in advance, but I just feel like nobody's ever really created, authentic looking. I mean, like Ebbets Flannels has done it, but the average fan doesn't want to spend, $250, $300 in a flannel jersey that they have to dry clean. And then a lot of them were just a lot of made up designs, the ones that were cheaper. So I feel like my goal with the Negro Leagues was to be the first to create the same looking jerseys and uniforms that they wore, like historically accurate, but also for like an affordable price of, similar to modern day jersey.
No, I think you do a really nice job because like I was looking through some of the stuff tonight or actually yesterday, and just I don't know, like it's purely correct. I think there's some really really good stuff that you're doing with those. I think it's important to have that heritage out there because it was largely ignored for a long time.
Yeah, thank you.
And looking at some of the collections that you have, you talk about like have some of the old hockey sweaters, things like that, and then one of them is the World League. The World League is a thing that's only I think known to crazy people like us who love sports in all different eras and genres of it. Where did some of that come from? I mean, the World League, was around in the 70s for like 3 years, and that was it. I mean, where did the idea to have that be one of your collections?
Mainly came from the early days of trying to find anything that had trademarks abandoned or canceled or like nobody knew about them. And the World League, there's a guy named Richie Franklin that has a whole Facebook group around the World League that he keeps it alive. So I was able to connect with him, and he had all kinds of pictures, game worn jerseys, all kinds of stuff he sent over. In a lot of these leagues, they have groups of people that stay relevant. Also, Jimmy Corcoran, who is Kane Corcoran's son, who is like the big quarterback in that league, or one of them, like the big name guys. He's always reached out with videos and pictures that he took as a kid, and so a lot of times stuff like that, we really don't have to do a lot of research because people are so passionate that we're involved in those kind of leagues. They're like, they want you to make it so badly. They send you like everything that they have. It's really helpful for us to make it accurate. And, I feel like everybody wins. But I think also too, a lot of them are just crazy colors and designs and people that don't even know what those teams are. Like the pink Southern California Sun jerseys, like, when have you ever seen a pink football jersey out there? So people just buy it for fashion too. And I feel like, we're trying to get a little bit of a younger demographic that's just interested for the fashion of some of these old teams and leagues going forward too.
Right. I mean, you see that even from the major companies. You see, Yankee hats or Red Sox hats, for example, in all sorts of different colors. Dodgers hats, and it's like, it's not that they love the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Red Sox. It's they love the branding and they love the fashion of it. And so I think having a company like yours really can bring that to the forefront, as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it hasn't been ours, but honestly, Drake has helped a lot because he'll just randomly wear some of these crazy teams out of nowhere, and we just happen to have it on the website, and it'll just blow up for a week.
No, that's awesome.
We've had guys too, like Jalen Hurts has got some jerseys from us for his dad who played in the CFL, and we sent one to Joe Burrow who wore it to a game. So that stuff kind of helps too, where just if we get anybody with visibility to wear something, it could be a really big boost for a little while for us too. So
is that something where they come to you and they maybe they're just going on and they see your website and they're like, holy crap, he's got these really cool jerseys that I want. They look great, or they're for, like you said, Jalen Hurts got one for his dad who played in the CFL. Did they approach you about these things? And then, how does it kind of work when you were able to get to work with a sports star or a celebrity to kind of promote your products or to show your products by wearing them?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Yeah, for sure. Like, it just depends on the situation. Like Jalen Hurts reached out through his agent and saw that we had that team, the Barracudas, which nobody carries, and he wanted a bunch of jerseys for him and his family to wear. So that was cool. And then the Joe Burrow, I was like right after, like we were like, why don't we just mail a jersey to the stadium for Jim Burrow, his dad that played in the CFL, and then
there you go.
He got it. He wore it like the next week to the game. So sometimes we'll just reach out to people and send it to them. Sometimes they reach out, and sometimes they just buy it on the website and we don't even know. And then all of a sudden they just, you just see them wearing it somewhere. So
no, that's cool. So let's let's. I got a couple questions. One, how did you end up getting the UFL and then also the AF1 line?
The UFL was kind of like a long, complicated thing. We had at one point the 2001 XFL was abandoned. The WWE or F, whatever it was at the time, had canceled everything and let it go to the public domain. So that was one of our first leagues, and also the original USFL from the 80s. At that point, it was also abandoned back like 2016, 2017 when we were starting. So all that was abandoned. We were some of our first leagues, and then both the XFL and USFL, started resurrecting the league names and then also the team names. So, we kind of went back and forth for a while, and then finally, then they merged, and it was honestly a mess. And now they merged, they came together. It's all under all the trademarks are just kind of come together under the UFL, and we licensed it, and so it's like sorted out. But for a couple of years, it was a huge mess of who owned what, and we just happened to all be doing the same thing at the same time, so it worked out that we all kind of came together to make something.
So working with the UFL, you didn't happen to work with Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia, did you?
No, I never met them or spoken to them. I've been to a few games when or at least during the XFL season when they were both there. So I saw them, but I didn't meet them though. And then the AF one too. Okay.
If you're a certain age, you remember the original XFL. Believe me.
Yeah,
Vince McMahon's attempt at doing football. You definitely remember that if you're a certain age.
I was like 12 years old, so I loved it at the time.
It was super innovative. There's a ton of things that came out of XFL that was integrated in the NFL, like that.
Skycam,
all that stuff. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. I can't think of anything else beyond that spider cam, but anyway, if you can shed some light on the AF1 relationship.
Yeah, the AF1, as I say, is pretty similar. We actually signed a deal with the old AFL in 2019. And then they went bankrupt like a month later before like anything came out. So we're just kind of sitting there, with the old Arena League, like who owns this? Are they selling it? Like what's going on? And then last year's league popped up. We talked to that group when they got the rights, and then so we had the license last year, and that obviously didn't go very well. And so we were at least like connected with the people within the league, and then going into this season, we were able to get the license to work with them. So that was really exciting, and it's been exciting to see it grow throughout the season as well.
You have a kind of a question from just kind of an overall, not just AF1, but what's the most sought after jersey that you've been able to make? Meaning, like, is there one that you really fought for the trademark or had your art team make a design and it just came out great? And is there one that like stands out to you as like something you really wanted to get and you guys were able to make it happen?
I would say the Portland Mavericks, because that was like the first one that we did. They had a documentary on Netflix come out. It's called The Battered Bastards of Baseball.
Yeah, I actually watched that.
I've seen that one. I'm trying to think of there's a celebrity that was part of that. Kurt Russell, is that right?
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
But a little bit. His dad owned the team.
Yes.
Bing Russell, that's what it was. Kurt Russell the team. So that was actually the first jersey we ever did, and that kind of started it off. And then we were able to organize like a local event with a team out here at the time, the Portland Pickles, like a college summer league team. We had them do a Portland Mavericks throwback game, and like former players came to the game. And then the Hillsboro Hops, like minor league team, did their own like the next year. So that was really what gave, me the momentum to really keep pushing to see, how just like one random team that nobody really thought to do could like take off, and like the whole city would get behind it like that. So I'd have to say that was probably my favorite at this point.
We have a question from one of our our fans, although that's funny to say, Stephanie asks, "What's the most requested jersey that you have? What's a jersey that you can't keep in stock on the website?"
Well, most of it's, made to order, so
Okay.
it's always in stock. But definitely like the Negro Leagues, when it's worn, like the Seattle Steelheads when the Mariners wear it, or like the Sea Lions, San Francisco Sea Lions last year, like those for like a couple weeks will just be off the charts. Like we don't know how many to make. And then Houston Colt 45s is a really good seller. Everybody likes that. That kind of got abandoned because it has the gun within the logo. It's the old Astros logo, and they didn't want anything to do with it because the gun. Kind of like, well, we'll pick it up. So that one's the best. From the best sellers.
And it's funny because the Colt 45s were only around for 2 years and then became the Astros in '64. So, the fact that the team only existed as that name for like 2 years, but yet it's a very popular jersey, as those throwbacks. It's kind of interesting how that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some future things we can look forward to in terms of AF1? Obviously, is the stuff that we're talking about here, and just overall for your company going forward. What are we are we have things in the pipeline that you can talk about?
Well, AF1, definitely want to do it a lot bigger and better next year. It kind of came as a really last minute thing when we got the deal, and so we didn't even have designs of what the uniforms looked like or anything. We were just kind of like, as teams were debuting it, we were kind of like using basically how we do historic stuff. We're sitting there watching the games, like, all right, what does this jersey look like? Because another company had done all their stuff prior to us even being involved, and they didn't really share it with us. So I was kind of, we're just sitting there like, what do these jerseys look like? What is it? And so as the season's gone, and we've gotten an idea of what everything looks like and what fan bases are really supportive. We can definitely go into next year with a lot more products and really even expand the shop beyond just clothing. We did add like some pint glasses, but other stuff like that, phone cases, I don't know, office supplies, whatever. We'll do research in the off season, but we like to definitely expand it beyond clothing, and then add maybe, I know satin jackets were really popular, and we did that with the USFL a couple years ago. So just kind of research at the end of the season and come back bigger and better next year when we have a whole off season to prepare.
Well, those actually, that's how I found you, was a Firebirds pint glass. Was posted in one of the Firebirds group, and I'm like, man, that's a beautiful pint glass. And then he'd say, hey, where it came from, and then from there, we kind of discovered what you're all into. And honestly, like, we really appreciate what you do, and we certainly appreciate your time this evening. So thank you very much for coming on.
Jeff, if you want to, we can plug obviously your website, royalretros.com. I put it in the chat. Royal ROYLRETROS.com. Go on there and look if you're looking for a jersey for AF1 team, UFL, any of the old stuff. Definitely check that out. And we appreciate your time, Dustin, and thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me, and looking forward to the playoffs. I think the Firebirds, I don't really see who's going to beat them this year, so should be an exciting run.
We don't.
Are you a fan of the Lightning?
I have not made it to. I've seen it on TV. It's been or online on Evergreen. I haven't made it to a game. It's about 2.5, 3 hours from me, but I did go to
that's far enough. Yeah. Okay.
I went up to the Wolfpack game the opening week. That was a great time. Good stadium, good atmosphere. So I can't really be a fan, honestly, if we're doing this kind of stuff for the league. Can't really pick fans, but definitely, it's good to watch every weekend and keep track of it. And I love the old arena football. Like, I remember as a kid watching when it was like on CBS with sold out stadiums. So that style of football, I've always been a fan of, and it's fun that it's coming back with the nets and everything, and hopefully continues to grow.
Yeah, that's the key. It's just getting some bodies in those seats, because once that happens, the rest will be history. I really believe that. So
yeah, and then the fact that a lot of these teams are able to survive everything that happened last year and come back for another year really speaks to their fan bases and
no doubt about
the
it.
ownership and how much they want this to work. So I'm excited for it, and like I said, going to the playoffs. Good luck to the Firebirds. They seem pretty dominant.
Yeah, I just got to go 1-0 each week, as Coach Burr would say. Do that, it'll be all right. So again, thank you, man.
Yeah, for sure.